Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lonely Podcast. What is the Lonely Podcast? It's new, right? I've been thinking I wanted to do a podcast for a little while. You know, just talk, unedited, unfiltered, all that. It will be edited slightly. That's because my camera can only record like 20 or 30 minutes before I have to reset the recording. It's a pain in the ass. I don't know why it does that. It's an expensive enough camera, you know. I don't know why I have to do that. But I do. So there'll be the cuts. Or if someone knocks on the door. Or if the Hoover goes off outside the door. You know, it's a sad day for me. Everyone's at home. Noises. I don't quite have the podcast studio yet. But there we go. Why is it called The Lonely Podcast? Well, it's just me. No guest. No one to talk to except you guys. I don't actually know if a podcast counts as a podcast when it's one person. Is that still a podcast? I mean, I looked it up. Podcast definition didn't mention about how many people are there. Just that the format should stay the same. So yeah, the format will stay the same. I'll upload this to the Tube, of course, which is where you're watching. I'm going to see if I can make this an MP3 as well. I've just knocked the mic. You know, like Spotify, that sort of thing. See if I can figure that out. Who knows, maybe you're listening to it on that right now. But yeah, and today's episode, The Walking Dead. Now, before I get into that subject, I want to say that is not going to be the only thing we talk about on these podcasts. We're going to talk about other things outside of movies and TV, interesting topics, life topics, you know, the big questions, the controversial things, you know. I want to talk about all of that stuff. But today I thought was a good place to start with The Walking Dead. Like I said, it's a Saturday for me. On Monday, the new season comes out. Season 11. The first one. First episode, and I'm looking forward to it. And this podcast isn't just for people that have watched the show. This is for people who haven't watched the show. And it's for people, most importantly, that gave up on the show. Because I was one of those people till I came back recently and watched the whole show. Start to finish, binged it. A couple of months, I think. I wasn't really keeping check, but I got through it pretty rapid. So yeah, I want you to sit back, get some background noise, enjoy yourself. I got myself a drink here. It's a double Jack and Coke. Fortunately, it's Diet Coke. It could actually be a triple. I'm not good with measurements. I just sort of go up to a line on the glass and say, yeah, we'll go to there. It's probably a triple. 2.5 maybe. But you know, pour yourself a drink. Listen to this monotone voice of mine. And let's discuss The Walking Dead. Alright. I even made myself a PowerPoint there. There's a lot to talk about here. You know, I thought about maybe just making a video, but there's a lot to discuss here. And if I'd made a video, man, that would have taken long to edit. I'm not lazy with editing, of course, but I think a podcast works better. That's enough waffle for me. Let's get into it. Alright. So like I said, there's 3 viewers for The Walking Dead. You got the one who watched it all. Alright? That's me now. The one who stuck with it. You got the one who never bothered. Okay? And that's fair enough. And then you got the one who gave up. And that used to be me. I did give up with this show originally. And I gave up. I just had a moment there. I just paused because I thought, I'm going to edit that bit out, the pause. No, I'm not. This is a podcast, alright? Keep talking, Joe. I was the one who did give up. I gave up around season 8, but I gave it another chance. I knew the new season was coming out. I'd heard things that season 9 and 10 were pretty good because I'd originally given up in season 8. And they also put all the episodes on Disney Plus just when I kind of felt like rewatching it, which was like perfect timing, you know, divine intervention. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I got nothing else to watch. I just finished binging another show before The Walking Dead. I don't know what. I was watching something before. For the life of me, I don't know what I was watching. Might have been Loki or something. I feel like I was binging something bigger, but yeah. Either way. Now, The Walking Dead. why was it so good in the first place? The show was incredible for viewers, you know? God, that's rancid. Nice though. But yeah, why was it so good? Well, I mean, I'd forgotten a lot, and originally when I first watched the show, I didn't actually see most of season 1. I think my sister was watching it on TV, and I just sort of caught an episode near the back end of season 6, maybe. Not, what am I talking about? Season 1. I caught an episode, I think it might have been midway through season 1, which was only 6 episodes, that's what I was trying to say. And I was like, okay, Walking Dead, this seems cool. And then I carried on from there. So I never actually saw the first ever episode. So when I started rewatching the series a couple months ago, it was the first time I'd ever seen season 1, episode 1. And what an incredible episode. Maybe the best the show ever did, possibly. It was just brilliant. It was great TV. It was a really good introduction to the show. It's about, over an hour long. It was like a short film. You spend time with Rick, and then you meet Morgan, and you just had this really cool story. You feel for Rick. So much happens. The zombies are scary. It's cool. And you realize how high budget the show is as well, based on that. It's mighty impressive, this first episode. And sucks you right in. And it's no wonder the show gained such a lot of viewers, because that first episode was fantastic. And like I said, the characters were great, Andrew Lincoln, it would not feel right to me hearing him with a British accent, because of course he is British, but he's great. He's the heart of the show, and Morgan was a really good part of that introduction as well. And like I said, great way to pull the viewers in. And that just sort of carried on with season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You care a lot about these characters. They're very well done. With this show, it hits that TV show format. It hits that cliche of just doing the cliche things that TV shows do. The music going really loud and stuff before it cuts off for an ad break or something. It's not like masterfully put together like a lot of TV shows out there, but it makes for good TV. The thing that is masterful about this show is the characters. It's got some of the best characters in a TV show you're ever going to see. Characters that you really care about the longer you get to know them. And when you go on such a long journey with them, however long they're in the show, but say you're with a character for 7 seasons, you've seen them change, you've seen them evolve. It's like you've been with them on their entire journey. You don't really miss much of a moment, and you see all the development they go through. And that's the strength of the show. The people. And one of the best parts of the early seasons, season 1 and 2, was the Rick and Shane dynamic. Now, Shane is one of my favourite characters in The Walking Dead, even though he was even only in it for 2 seasons, played very brilliantly by John Bernthal. And we know how good John Bernthal is, He's been in Scorsese movies. Of course, he was in The Wolf of Wall Street. He was the Punisher. He's just a great actor, I think The Walking Dead showed how good this guy is at acting, and it was a shame that he had to die so early in the show. But for the 2 seasons he was in it, he was a pivotal character, and he was, in a sense, the first villain of the show. He was the first real conflict for Rick, and it was his own friend, which is, in a sense, why it was actually, one of the most impactful villains, one of the most impactful threats to Rick, because Shane was his brother. Not literally, of course, but he was his best friend. He was his brother. And that just that went as the season went on. You saw Shane sort of lose his head, but for me, I did kind of understand Shane. I supported Shane's decisions a lot of the time over Rick's. Of course, Shane is a ruthless character. He's going to make decisions that don't favour what would be considered moral or good, but it worked with the world they were in now. And Shane would have survived were it not for Rick. So Shane was cut out for this world. Rick wasn't originally, but Rick did adapt and change once he had to murder Shane. And that was one of the strongest parts of the early seasons. Another thing, of course, was the mystery of the pandemic, which they get to at the end of season 1. The first season's great. It's only 6 episodes, of course, but it tells a lot of story in those 6 episodes. And that finale was great, where they go to the lab, and the guy's studying the virus, and it's just they have no answer to it. And of course, they make the discovery that everyone's infected. So whenever you die, you will just turn into a zombie. There's nothing you can do about it unless the head is not even removed, destroyed. Because when you cut the head off a zombie, it's still moans and attempts to bite, and you can still, get bitten from just the head of a zombie and turn into one. It's a cool feature. I remember a little while back I made a video reviewing zombies from different films and TV shows, and I ranked the Walking Dead ones pretty low. I believe that ranking would change now that I've seen what the zombies are capable of, even though they're kind of slow and somewhat easy to kill. They've got a lot of grit to them. These zombies are fighters. They'll do anything to get a little chomp on you. And that's what makes them so great. But of course, they're not the only villain in the show. Of course, it is The Walking Dead. It's about the zombies. But it's really the people that are the main threat in this show. And you had some great villains up until the show kind of went a bit tits up in season 8. And like I said, the first of those villains was Shane, in a sense. Someone within the group that kind of lost his head and became a threat. And then you had the governor after that. And then you had the cannibals, who were around season 5, but they were quite a short-lived villain. And then you had the saviors. The group kind of had like a season and a half of freedom, really. From direct villains. It's more just about surviving within themselves and conflicts within the group. From disagreements and stuff. Obviously, they get settled at Alexandria, and they have a little less to worry about. But then eventually the saviors come around, and that's sort of your next villain. But that, of course, is one of the problems with the show, which we'll get to in a bit. And that's kind of what caused an issue, was the saviors and their plot. But, but building up to that, the show was really great. They ended up building a very strong group of characters, especially once you got like Herschel and his family involved. So you had Herschel, Maggie, Beth. You pick up characters along the way. You add to the group people like Tyrese, Sasha, Abraham, Eugene, Rosita. You end up getting a very good group. Obviously, not all of them were around to meet each other at the same time. I don't think like Beth ever met Abraham, Rosita, Eugene. But you end up having a very strong group of characters there. And they were stuck together a lot of the time. They did get split at times, but they were always together. And that's what made the show so damn good in those early seasons. That's what it was. It was, like I said, it's the characters. And it's seeing them together. I think when they were actually kind of at their lowest point, but they were still as a group, was when the show was at its best. And I think it was basically just before they got to Alexandria, around sort of season 5 time. That's when the show was at the peak. It was sort of rising. I feel like season 1 and 2 are still the best seasons, but 3, 4, 5, it still remained very, very solid. And then it kind of loses its way a bit. You introduce so many characters get split up, they go live in different places, and before you know it, you've just got so many different things going on. You don't really get to spend enough time with the characters, at least beforehand, when everyone was in the same group. You don't have to move around locations that much. You just sort of stay, you can stay with a character, but then all the other characters are with them anyway. So you kind of had your group there. And that's when, like I said, the show was at its best. That's why it drew everyone in. That's why it got such a big fan base. And that's why everyone loved and praised The Walking Dead. So what did go wrong? What went wrong? Obviously our group, they go to Alexandria, which is, of course, like a safe haven. It's a neighborhood built with like townhouses. They're like mansions, huge houses. There's a very secure wall around the whole area, sorry. and it's just safe. Everyone in there's nice. They're a bit naive though, because they haven't really experienced the outside world. They've just been sort of living in bliss, living in like a make-believe world, because there's no real threat there. And, it's kind of nice. It made a nice change when we saw our group get to Alexandria, because it's like, okay, finally, they've got a bit of peace. They've been struggling, they've been on the road this whole time. But where this caused a problem was two things. It was the fact that the group weren't really struggling anymore. They didn't really have a threat, so it kind of made the show a little bit dull. Because now their new problem was settling in to a new neighborhood. It's like a sitcom plotline. It's just like, yeah, damn, I've got to get to know the new neighbors. And then another problem was the introduction of many, many new characters, and then characters splitting up. And you're spending a lot of time with all these new characters and the old characters, but they're not doing the same things anymore. So it's just like a case of there's too many characters and not enough time. And even though they made the seasons longer, they ended up all being like 16 episodes. It's still not enough. You can spend episodes at a time without seeing a pivotal main character. Rick doesn't become the main character anymore because he's just one of the top ones. He's still the one you see the most. He still sort of has an influence on every little plot line, but he's not the man anymore. He's spending time with all these other characters. And that, that wasn't ideal, because you want to sort of stick with your group, stick with what you know, and continue on them with their journey. But you kind of got to get to know these new characters, and, introducing new characters into a show that's been running for like 6 seasons. It's a bit like, well, how am I meant to give a damn about these guys when I've known these guys for all this time, And it also didn't help that characters we liked ended up becoming annoying. I'm not sure if the writing changed, but they became sort of intolerable at times. And you start to get put off them. The main example for me is Tara. I believe that's her name. She was introduced in like season 5, I think. She was pretty good to start with. She was fine. And then for me, she became like my least favorite character in the show. She was so annoying. Her writing didn't make sense. Like, it felt forced. It felt like no one would talk like the way she was talking, like cracking jokes to themselves and all this stuff, thinking everything is a joke, like you're living in an apocalypse. Everyone else is serious, and then you just got her. She felt so out of place. I didn't enjoy her character. I especially didn't enjoy what she become. And because of this, because of the characters becoming a certain way, you end up liking the villains more. You find them more interesting, particularly the saviors. And Negan, he becomes the man. He becomes the one you enjoy listening to, and the guy you want to spend time with in the show. And on top of this, in season 7 and 8, there were predictable storylines and predictable moments, and you had this very severe issue of the perfect timing issue, I like to call it. Time and time again, one of our characters would be in a precarious situation. They're about to die. They're swarmed. And then another character, would just show up at the perfect time and save the day. Shoot the zombie in the head just before it's going to bite. Knife the zombie in the head just before it's going to bite. Just time and time again. I'd watch it and I'd see someone in a bad situation. I'd be like, okay, who's it going to be? Who's going to save him this time? It's going to be Sasha. Abraham going to pop out the bushes and just save the day. Every time, it really got on my nerves. And they phased it out a bit in 9 and 10, but it still happened a little bit. I was watching an episode when I was finishing up season 10, and it happened. I was like, oh, come on, bruh. I thought we got rid of this. But no, and, and like I said, with those characters, these new ones, you get to know them, you give them like a season, whatever, or a few episodes, and you go, okay, I can live with this guy or girl, I like him, it's fine. But by the end of the show, you've actually really got barely anyone from season 1 remaining. You've got Carol and Daryl. That's it. Everyone else phased out the show. And And, especially losing Rick, of course, which we'll get to in a bit, that's a shame as well. That's kind of what went pivotally wrong with the show. It just, too many characters, not seeing characters for enough time, not spending enough time with them when we did, group getting split, boring storylines, dragged out, villains become more interesting, main characters become annoying, the ones we've known, and, just losing everyone OG. So it's just like, who even are this group anymore? I don't know them. And of course, delving more into that, the shift that happened. Like I said, you had like 6 seasons of brilliance, I'd say. You got the character development, the great villains, the great storylines, and no rest for our heroes, only brief moments, only brief spells where they had a bit of peace, like a bit of time at the prison. I think they had a few months there where things were going well, but then everyone got like diseased and shit. There was like a plague going around, not the zombie one either. Ugh. So that was a problem. That was a cut right there, if you didn't notice. Oh my god. We hit the 20-minute mark on the camera. And yeah. The build-up in Season 6, though, was cool. The build-up to the Saviours, I thought was expertly done. I found it very, very intriguing, and it felt like they were a real threat. And everyone watching knew they were coming, so, oh my god, it's Negan, it's Negan. Like, I didn't know about the comics that much, but other people did, so you hear the talk on social media and stuff. You're like, Negan's coming, man. He's going to do this, and you get you excited. And, you had these moments building up in Season 6. I really liked the biker gang moment. You got this biker gang there with the Saviours. They block off, like, Daryl, I believe Sasha, and someone else on the road. And they're very threatening to say, we're the Saviours, blah, blah, blah. They're actually going to kill him. They're going to kill him. They're just going to kill him on the road. And you think, Jesus Christ, this is crazy. This is crazy. And then Daryl, because he found an RPG earlier that day, boom, that's it. Abraham was there as well. Blows his group of Saviours up, and you think, holy shit. Okay, that's wild. That's crazy. But that's cool as well. It gets you excited. The next bit, of course, was the satellite station. One of the best episodes, an iconic episode. Rick, he's heard about these Saviours. The group have discovered Hilltop. They know about the Saviours. They know the Saviours are going to come to Alexandria eventually and try and, take half their stuff. Because this is what the Saviours do. They hold their power by letting other groups that they come across live if they give them a load of their supplies, like at least half. So Rick, because he's kind of on a high, he's on a cockiness, a confidence. He's thinking, you know what? Screw the Saviours. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to take them down before they even get to me. Because I can deal with them. I deal with less people before. Light work. Hence the satellite station. They find this satellite station, which is a base. And they stupidly assume that all the Saviours are there. They don't think they're that big a group. Alright? They think all the Saviours are there. So they infiltrate it. They kill everyone, but it's brutal. They're killing people in their sleep. People that haven't even caused a conflict with them, they're just murdering them in their sleep. They're like shoot them in the head, just knife them in the head whilst they're asleep. It's really brutal. It's kind of fucked up. But they do all that. They deal with them all. And then of course you get Carol and Maggie. They get kidnapped by the Saviours as well. Rick and the group, they deal with that. They murder them. Carol and Maggie kind of escape. They murder the people as well. It's just an absolute massacre. It's really messed up. But they do it. They escape. And then, of course, Rick finds a guy. And he says, where's Negan? He's the last man standing in this little base. And the guy says, I'm Negan. Rick thinks, oh, hey, look, I've got Negan. He's the leader. Knifed. Killed. Done and dusted. But, of course, the problem with that is that wasn't actually Negan. Every Saviour says, I am Negan. Because they believe in Negan so much that they all identify as Negan. Ooh. They identify as Negan. There's your new gender. If you ask a Saviour who they identify as, they gonna say Negan. And then, of course, after that situation, the saviors, the real saviors, the rest of them, I should say, led by Negan, like, oh shit, this man did not just kill our whole satellite base. We're gonna get him. And then you get kind of like the last episode of season 6. All the roads are being blocked off. They cannot escape our group. As in, our group cannot escape. Everywhere they go, saviors blocking off the roads, blocking them. They're walling them in. They're closing them in. And that is where the show is actually still being good in season 6. Like, it kind of got a little bit boring back end of 5, early parts of 6, but it was still okay, still decent. And then you get to the end of season 6 and you think, whoa, this is crazy, this is exciting, this is wild. And then you get to the finale, when Negan's got them all lined up. On the knees, on the ground, all the lights pointing at him, he's captured them. And that's where they ended season 6. You don't know who he's going to kill. Now, watching that at the time, I was like, oh my god, they're really going to leave us hanging for like a year on this shit. It was painful. But then, of course, season 7 came around, and everyone already knew who was going to die, in a sense, because of the comics. They were saying Glenn and Abraham were going to die. I believe Abraham was also, killed in the comics. But Glenn and Abraham, and everyone's thinking, I wonder if they'll change it. They can't kill Glenn, because Glenn, for me, is like a pivotal character. He's one of like the top, 2 or 3. It's kind of like Rick and Glenn. They are the guys. So when they did kill Glenn, not only was it awful to watch, his eye popping out and stuff, it was messed up to watch. There were actually complaints about the show being a bit too brutal there, which it's a fair point, but I think that made it hit harder, more impactful. But it's kind of messed up seeing one of your favourite characters go out like that. And then on top of that, you lose Abraham as well. And obviously that's not as impactful as losing Glenn, but he was an important character. Abraham was very likeable. But the loss of Glenn, that left a hole in the show for me. It left a gap that was never filled, really, once Glenn left. I can still miss Glenn to this day. I still think the show would be a lot better if he was in it. But I guess you can't alter the comics too much, and you got to make the show impactful. It would have felt a bit safe if they just kept Glenn alive. So there's that, But the show didn't necessarily go downhill straight away. Season 7 was decent. There were filler eps. I'm just reading off the screen. I just said fillers. There were filler episodes. But it remained a long, intense season as Negan sort of took control of the group and toyed with them and bullied them. And it showed Negan to be a really horrible man. But he was funny at the same time. He's just a funny guy. He's got charisma. He was a very interesting villain. He was someone that you actually wanted to see more of, and it didn't bother you too much when he was doing this whole bullying thing of the group. But you're also like, okay, but yeah, you do all this bullying shit, but please don't kill anyone. But he's already killed Glenn, so you think it's probably safe. He's only going to kill like irrelevant people from now on. And season 7 was fine. It was decent. It was actually better than I remember. Because I gave up originally at season 8, I feel like I said to myself, well, season 7 must have been shit as well, but I stuck with it, and then I gave up by 8. But 7's actually decent. I think especially when you binge it, I think week to week, it was a pain in the arse, because I remember getting excited each week, and you'd get to the next episode, and it'd be like a filler episode, or nothing would really happen. You'd be like, oh, for fuck's sake. I remember me and my friend Eve used to watch it. We were like religiously on time with every episode. We'd be like, you watching? All that, and kind of talk about the episodes that went along. And when it was a shit episode, we'd be like, well, fuck me. What were we even waiting for? And then it got to season 8. Oh, God. Probably some of the worst television. Maybe that's an overstatement. It's bad. The whole season was poor, except for a couple of episodes. Like, just a couple episodes in that season were fine. And for me, it felt like the Savior storyline in that season went a season too long. But on the other hand, if it had been resolved in season 7, it would have felt too short, and it wouldn't have felt like Negan deserved the hype, and the Saviors deserved all this hype about how they're like the biggest villain. So it kind of had to go on a bit longer, but the way it was executed was not the one. And the season was just a drag in general, with not much progression whatsoever. Like I mentioned before, this is where the perfect timing issue became a real thing. The show was very predictable. The perfect timing was a real problem. And whenever something was about to happen, someone or something conveniently intervenes every time. Every goddamn time. And it took the spark out of the show. It took like the Game of Thrones element out of the show. Because that's what this show had. You know, the element of like, you don't know if someone's about to die. But they could, because they used to spring that shit on you in the early seasons of The Walking Dead. Like T-Dog, man. Dead. The fuck? They would just drop these characters out of nowhere. But then the show became a bit predictable, because you knew if a character was getting considerable amount of screen time when they hadn't really been getting it in the most recent episodes, you knew it was their time. You knew it's like, okay, cheers. Yeah, you're dead now. Became too damn obvious. Another issue with season 8 was the monologues. This show became so preachy. Everyone's out here dropping like fucking MLK speeches. And you're thinking, what the what? You're living in an apocalypse, and you've got time to, what, have you been writing a script? Like in your spare time? You've been writing like a speech? You know, they're all coming out like Obama, just dropping all these like, just all these crazy speeches, and you think, what am I listening to? Like, they started season 8 with like some speech from Rick, I think, and I'm just thinking, man, this man would not do that. I don't know. I know you got to get the guys going, get them pumped and stuff, but it just felt ridiculous, and it became preachy and cringy, and it just didn't feel real. It felt scripted and it felt cheesy. I did not like it. In all honesty, the best part of season 8 was Dwight's storyline. Dwight is a good character. He was the best character from probably in season 7 and 8, you know, next to like Negan and stuff. But I really liked Dwight's arc. How he was with the Saviors. He ran away from the Saviors, which is when Dara originally found him. And then he went back to the Saviors because they caught him again. And then he betrayed the Saviors by working with, like, Rick and his group. But he was still with the Saviors, like, working undercover. And Negan found out anyway, but of course Dwight does ultimately survive and goes looking for his long-lost love who escaped prior, which was nice. I'd love to catch up on them one day. Like, if in season 11, if you just see him and his missus, I think that'd be nice. I did like Dwight a lot. I thought he was a good character. And during season 8, I found his part of the storyline the most interesting to me. Like, when I saw we had Dwight in the scene, I was like, yes, okay, I'm going to enjoy this scene. I'm going to enjoy what's coming next. And that was really the strength of season 8, even though I didn't have many of those, was the villain side of things. Seeing inside the sanctuary, especially like Eugene, I genuinely thought he had become a villain. He seemed that way, and I came to like dislike him. But he was actually working against them the whole time. They just didn't realise when he did the whole bullet stunt. But with season 8, the point where I stopped watching was like the second or third episode. You know, I was watching, I was like, oh my god, this is boring, this is cringy, this is awful. And then they brought back some guy that was in season 1, like, all this time ago, called, like, Morales, or something like that. And I didn't even remember him, because I hadn't seen season 1 for so long. I liked seeing it back in, like, 2012, maybe, or something. And I just didn't remember the guy, and I just sort of watched the episode, and it was meant to be, like, a big moment, because, oh my god, it's Morales. But I was like, I don't even know who the fuck this dude is. I have no idea who this is. I said this to Eve at the time when we were watching. I was like, who the fuck even is this dude? Am I meant to know who this is? Is this meant to be a big deal? I never watched another episode. I never continued with season 8 after that. Until about, I don't know, a few weeks ago, a month ago, I came back to season 8. I finally caught up with where I was. That moment still sucks. It's not a big comeback. I mean, the guy dies within like 30 minutes anyway, because Daryl shoots him in the head, I think, with a crossbow, which I don't mind. It just was not an interesting moment. I think they thought it'd be really crazy and impactful. It was like, oh my god, look who's back from season 1. I felt like they just run out of ideas. They just called the guy like, hey yo, you remember us? You're on The Walking Dead. The guy's like, bruh, I left in season 1, what do you want? So I don't know why they brought him back. But the past 2-3 weeks of viewing, 8, 9, 10, it's been new territory for me. It's been the first time I've seen any of that stuff. I can ultimately say season 8 is the worst season. It's bad. And people had said to me, like, it gets better after that. Season 9 and 10 are actually pretty good. And I thought, doubt it, man. But it just carries on the way it is. No, actually, it does actually get better. You have my word on this. Season 9 and 10 are good. They're very good. They have some great moments. And we'll get to that in a moment. But finishing up on season 8. The best episode of season 8 was Carl dying. And that's because, it sounds bad, it's not because I wanted him to die. He was never really my favourite character. I found him kind of annoying at times and a little bit preachy, but he was still a decent character. But his goodbye was actually very impactful. I found it sad. And I found it especially sad seeing how it affected Michonne, because she ultimately became like a mother to him, and she cared for him a lot, and him and her were like best friends. So seeing her getting all upset because they realised Carl had been bitten and all this stuff, and seeing the reason why Carl got bitten. Carl got bitten because he wanted to save like this stranger that Rick wouldn't save. Say this guy called Sadiq. And, I found that impactful, and it's like Carl sort of had this revelation. He sort of realised all the fighting was not worth it, because of course he got bitten whilst the group was still under the control of the Saviours. And he wrote letters to everyone when he knew he was dying. Like Enid, Rick, Michonne, all that. And then he wrote one to Negan as well, because he wanted the fighting to stop. And I found that episode very powerful. I thought it was a very, very good episode. It was the highlight in a very dismal season of Walking Dead content. But, it was a good episode. It helped that was like halfway through. Because if you were really losing interest, you see them be like, okay, it's waking me up a bit. Now we've got a bit of potential here. You want to see how Rick and Michonne are going to deal with it. And I found that a strong moment. Now, improvement. Obviously, it became a bit of a joke. You'd see advertisements for like season 9 of The Walking Dead. Or you'd say to your friends, yeah, Walking Dead's coming back soon. And the cliche response was, that show is still going on? They're still making that show? Even I said that to people. I was like, what? Why are they still making that shit? The show had become like an insult and a joke to people. I certainly saw it as a joke. I certainly used to say to people like, wow, you're still watching that shit. Why, man? Why don't you just give up? It's crap. It's awful. Season 9 and 10 are probably shit as well. Not true. Season 9 improved from season 8. I mean, it wasn't anything groundbreaking overall, but it just brought back the quality that the show did originally have in it's like season 5, season 6 standard quality. It was better. It was much better. It's never going to hit those highs. I don't think the show will ever hit the highs of the early seasons. It might. Maybe season 11 is going to do some crazy stuff. But it just brought back that quality. Season 8 was just a one-off. You've got to get through it. You've got to just firm it, so to speak, and just get through that obstacle course. If you can get through that, you will enjoy what comes after, because it's considerably better. And the early parts of season 9 were very, very good, and that is due to Rick. Because if you don't know, you may have heard, Rick is no longer in the show. Now, Rick had been like an incredible lead character this whole time. He was the heart of the show. Of course he was. He's Rick. Everyone loves Rick. He's been through some tough times. He's made questionable decisions, but he was the man. He was the key of all of this. And his final episode, I believe it was episode 5 or 6 of season 9, was just a great episode. And at the end of the episode prior to his final episode, he's like fallen off his horse, I think, and he's landed on like a rod that's like sticking out of the ground, and it's gone through his stomach. He's bleeding considerably. You know, he's really hurt, and he starts to hallucinate, and he hallucinates like these flashbacks, in a sense. He hallucinates talking to people that are no longer around, and you get crazy cool cameos that just put a smile on my face. Jon Bernthal returned as Shane, and Herschel returned. You know, you got Johnny Bernthal and Rick in a car, you know, in their old police officer outfits, having a chat, and it's obviously going on in Rick's head, but they're having a talk. Pardon me. Having a talk about everything and kind of teasing each other and all this stuff, but it was so great to see. It's probably the most expensive cameo of all time, but it was so great to have, you know, Shane back, because like I said, he's one of my favourite characters. I really was a fan of Shane, even though he was controversial at times, but it's great to have him back. And then of course Rick's chat with Herschel, once again very impactful, because Herschel didn't deserve to go out the way he did, and Herschel was such a great character, you know, up until his death. He was one of the best in the show. Such a great character. And of course you get those cool cameos. That's brilliant to start with, and then you get the moment. Now, if you don't know what happens to Rick, here's what happens to Rick. So early parts of season 9, he's been building a bridge to connect, you know, like travel between like Alexandria and Hilltop and the Sanctuary and stuff. It's like easier for them to all get to each other if they rebuild this bridge. But it's not going well, and they know there's a horde on the way, and the horde has ended up at the bridge, and it's chasing after Rick the whole time he's been injured. You know, he's barely surviving, but he doesn't want to get obviously eaten alive. And he gets to the bridge, and they're walking across it, and he can kill them all because there's some dynamite on the bridge. He's got his he's got his revolver. Was it Smith & Wesson or something? Holding it in his cool way, where it's kind of like pointed downwards and stuff. You know, arm all the way out. You know how he holds that pistol. You know, they're walking across the bridge, and Rick knows he can get him here. He's injured. He's dying, and he knows he can get him here. And he doesn't really stand far away. He's kind of just on the edge of the bridge as they're coming across. And you know, Daryl's arrived. He's watching out for Rick. There's a zombie getting close to him. Daryl shoots a shot and takes down the walker. Rick sort of gives him a little nod, and a few episodes prior as well, they've had a little scuffle, which is kind of sad to see, because they're like brothers to each other. They really are, you know. Rick's got a lot of love for Daryl. Daryl's got a lot of love for Rick. The whole bottom of the glass is just whiskey at this stage. But yeah, that's happening. The zombies are coming across. Rick's aiming his gun at this dynamite that he sees on the bridge, and he says, "I found them." He says, "I found them." He shoots the dynamite, and it blows up. And you think, why has he said, "I found them"? Why has he said, "I found them"? He says, "I found them" because maybe episode 1 in the very first season, early on, Rick says, "I'm looking for my family." And this was the answer to that. I'm looking for my family. I found them. When Rick got, stabbed by the pole sticking out the ground, and he's dying, he's having all these revelations. He's thinking about everything that's happened prior. All the conflicts he's gone through, all this stuff that's happening, time and time again. There's never a moment's peace for the guy. And, the horde coming, and then some, sort of drama with, people left over from the sanctuary wanting to cause trouble, and obviously the loss of Carl. It's all just sort of tallied up and added up to why he's so stressed, and why he's sort of on the verge, and why he doesn't really want to keep fighting anymore, because he's fought enough fights. He's kind of done. So that's why he's in no real escape to sort of get off the bridge and get to safety. He's just sort of like, he's content. He knows he's saved everyone he needed to save. He knows he saved his family. He even saved Negan, because, as he says, my mercy prevails over my wrath. So he's got to this point where he feels content, like he's done everything he needs to do. He's fought every fight. He's fought his last fight, and he just kind of wanted to rest. He wanted to rest, so he shoots the dynamite on the bridge after saying, "I found them," and it blows up. And Michonne shouts Rick, and Daryl starts crying, and as you're watching, you're crying, you're thinking, oh my god, like when Daryl cries, it's like an automatic, for me anyway, it's an automatic moment for me to cry, because, you know, Daryl don't cry, he's the tough guy, so you know if he's crying, something bad's happened. It's you know, like when Beth died as well, it's, you know, it's very, very impactful. But of course, he ain't dead. He ain't dead. They think he's dead to start with, but he ain't dead because they never find a body. And at the end of the episode, you find Jadis, who was the trash bag lady. I don't know, she had like the trash army. She lived in like a junkyard. And there's always something mysterious with her going on. Do with a helicopter. You know, she was in communication with people, walkie-talkie, people that were in a helicopter. And she's kind of on her way out because the saviors have slaughtered all her people. And she, you know, she wants to get picked up by the helicopter people. And as she's getting picked up, she sees Rick on the riverbed. He's been washed down this stream, because obviously the bridge is over a stream. She's found Rick, and she takes him with her. So Rick's not dead. He's getting medical care, like, in a helicopter and stuff. So as a viewer, like, oh my god, what the fuck is going on? Like, I'm kind of glad I wasn't watching this at the time, because every episode I want to be like, okay, is Rick going to be in this one? Is he going to be in this one? Is he going to be in this one? But he never returns. So far, he's never returned, you know. So, you know he's alive. He must still be alive. Before I get onto more of that, Jadis and the helicopter people, obviously I want to say that episode was probably the best episode in season 9. It was a really nice send-off for Rick. I really liked the cameo thing they did, bringing people back. And, you know, after Rick's disappearance, you had a time jump of about, how many years was it? 5 or 6 possibly. Like, Judith has grown up. Michonne has had a child who is Rick's child that he never met because they were trying for a baby just before he disappeared. And there was a great episode not too long after Rick's disappeared. I say great episode. The intro was great. The bit before, you know, they start playing the intro scene. You know, it's like AMC presents The Walking Dead. Before they start playing that, Michonne is out like looking for Rick. She's like heavily pregnant. She must be like 8 months down the line. She's looking for Rick. She's sort of like she's out there with Daryl. They're looking, you know, playing some really nice music and stuff. Like the whole intro was just perfect. And, you know, Daryl says to Michonne, like, I guess you're not gonna be able to look for a while, you know, because obviously she's going to be having a baby soon. And, you know, Michonne says to him, like, maybe you should come back, you know, see everyone. And Daryl says that he's never going to stop looking. He says, I'll never stop looking. And that's a powerful moment. That just shows, like, the brotherhood between the two. And I think that was a very strong and powerful moment, you know. Daryl said he'll never stop looking, and I believe that. I believe he'll never stop looking for Rick. It's only because of stuff that interfered in the meantime in season 9 and 10, like new villains and new conflicts that have sort of hindered him looking. But he'll never stop looking, and I believe that. And they need to follow that on with the show. But obviously, Rick was a loss, but the show didn't suffer as much as I thought it would with the loss of Rick. In a sense, you get over it as a viewer because you have hope that he will one day come back. But the show does, you know, incorporate some strong storylines and some strong elements to make it still interesting enough to watch despite Rick not being around. And for me, like, Daryl, Michonne and Negan become like the heart of the show after that. And they sort of carried it in a sense. And thank God we still have strong characters like that have been around for a while. You know, obviously Negan's not been around for a while, but he's the best of the new characters. So you can just sort of, you can still give a damn about the show and still enjoy it. Now, villain emphasis has obviously been a big deal. Jesus. Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, villains. Villains have always been a big deal. you kind of thought, watching this show from the start, the main villain is the walkers, the zombies, but it's never really been that. It's always the humans. They're the real threat. And in season 9, not long after Rick's disappearance, you get a new one. The Whisperers. Now, I'd heard about this before I'd actually ended up catching up to season 9 and stuff. The new villain is the Whisperers. And from what I'd heard about them, they always intrigue me. They're people that cut off the skins of the walkers, the face. They cut off like the head, basically. All the skin are on the head. And they wear it as a mask in order to blend in and command hordes of zombies, and also just sort of sneak up on other people because they just look like a zombie, and the zombies don't attack them because they got skin on, and they'll walk like them, and they're called the Whisperers because they whisper to each other, and the zombies won't really clock on because they're just moaning and they can't really hear over each other, but they'll just whisper to each other. And you have the leader of this called Alpha, and she was a strong antagonist, I'd say. She was pretty good. Very easy to dislike, which is key for a villain. You've got to hate the villain. You've got to really not like him. I think that was the thing with Negan. You end up liking him. Like, he's just killed Glenn, and you're like, I kind of like this guy, though. There's something about him. But Alpha, you just don't like her, and she's clearly unstable. You just think she's a bitch, and that's why she was an effective villain. But she wasn't really, for me, the best part of the Whisperers, the sort of the best villain in it, even though she was a leader. It was Beta. Doesn't sound right. Beta, for me, was the best villain. He was scary, he was badass, and ultimately the more interesting villain out of the two. Because he was huge. He never takes his mask off. I love stuff like that where you never see someone's face because they've always got the mask on. So there's always that crazy intrigued. Oh, excuse me. There's always that crazy intrigue, about him. About what's going on with him. Who is this guy? What's his story? But, ultimately he did fail in the end because of the absence of Alpha. He needed her around. He's sort of lost in his own world. He ends up becoming delusional, thinking that walkers are talking to him. And he's seeing things. Like, because obviously the Whisperers, they wear the masks and they talk to each other. So it's like the zombies are talking. And at first our group think they've like evolved to the point where zombies can talk. But yeah, Beta sort of gets to a point where he's so engulfed in what he's doing that he thinks that the walkers are actually talking to each other. Which isn't the case. He thinks they're talking to him, and he thinks he's actually commanding them and stuff. Like he's sort of lost the plot. But I mean, a problem during this arc of the show, I think it was in season 9, sort of near the end, sudden deaths. Out of the blue, alright, our crew, they're going out exploring or something, or they're looking for the Whisperers or whatever, and they come across a field, and it's got like, what do you call them? Stakes? Pikes? Just sticks, wooden sticks, pointy wooden sticks, in a field. And they've got heads on. And it's heads of our group, some of our characters, key characters. Enid, Tara, Henry. They're just dead. Their heads are on spikes due to the Whisperers. And I watched the episode and I was like, okay. Like, you're just going to kill them like that. It's so random, And you get some little flashbacks because Sadiq is the only survivor. So you kind of get some flashback stuff from him and, what he sees, because he has like PTSD after all of it and all this crap. But I think they would have been better off dedicating a whole episode to it. Just to show, because I think it would have been so much more impactful. Like, show them all out as a group, and then the Whisperers show up, and then you just see them all die. You'd be like, oh my god, like that'd be so much more impactful. But I'm wondering if they didn't do it because of the backlash they got after the whole Negan killing Glenn and Abraham thing, because it was too brutal. Because obviously this is brutal because they're beheading main characters. But, the fact that they just killed them off, I felt it was quite disrespectful to those characters. Like, those actors were probably pissed. Like, the person playing Enid and Tara especially, because they've been in the show for like a good few seasons. They're probably thinking, what the fuck? I'm just dead? Like, they're in the show and then they're not. Like, every character gets like a send-off, in a sense. Not these guys, they're just dead. The only one that survives is Sadiq, I mean, it was good that he survived, even though he's not really a character I favour all that much, because the reason he's alive is because Carl died for him, in a sense. Carl got bit trying to save Sadiq. So you think, okay, Sadiq survived, at least he's gonna, carry on with the show, become like a main character and stuff. No, they just killed Sadiq some stupid way because it was like a whisper inside Alexandria that no one clocked onto. He just killed him. And you just sort of think, what the fuck was the point? Why did he survive that whole ordeal just to die like 10 days later? And on top of that, Sadiq actually survives in the comics, I'm pretty sure. So it just made no sense to me. What was Carl's sacrifice for? Just pointless. Season 1 character died for a guy that's going to die in a stupid way anyway. So that was a problem. That was sort of my main problem with season 9. But one of the perks on the other side of the whole Whisperer thing was Negan's arc. He's been locked up in Alexandria. He's in like a jail cell that they built. And like I said, he kind of took the spotlight in the absence of Rick, like a new sort of character. He wasn't like a main character by any means, but any time spent with him was great. And you had moments as well where he redeems himself and he does stuff for the Alexandrians, and they'll just sort of look at him like, huh. I mean, that was nice of you, but we still don't trust you, bro. But it was cool. It was cool to see Negan, this other side to Negan, what he's, a good side to him. And you start to realise that the whole sort of, thing was when he was in charge of the Saviors it was a facade. It was an act. Fugazi, all that. It wasn't really genuine in a sense. That's not the real Negan. It's a side to him, but it's not the real Negan, And a cool plot twist that I didn't see coming. I found genuinely surprising when you get to season 10. Negan has escaped. Someone's let him out of the cell, and you don't know who. And of course, he's infiltrated the Whisperers, but you don't realise he's infiltrating. You think he actually wants to join them and take revenge on like Alexandria and stuff. And for me, when I was watching, I think, oh, come on, man. This doesn't seem like Negan. Is this right? Surely? Is this right? Is this really what he wants to do? I thought he was kind of past all that. I thought he was over that sort of stuff, because they took mercy on him. Rick says, like, my mercy prevails over my wrath. You can't imagine how much he wanted to kill Negan. Sorry, I can't stop burping. But he doesn't. So you think Negan wouldn't do him dirty, even though Rick's gone, you wouldn't think he'd do him dirty by attacking them. But of course it turns out that Carol had released Negan because Henry had died, and Henry was like her adopted son. And Negan's whole thing was infiltrating, getting close enough to Alpha to kill her. Satisfying moment, I gotta say. I really enjoyed him killing her. That was a brilliant moment, and a good twist, one that I didn't see coming, and it added to his redemption arc. But even despite him doing that, the people are still like, you took too long. You still attacked the hilltop and all this stuff. But Negan's just like, come on, man. I'm trying to do my own shit right now. Can you please just let me be? And I think that was the thing with like season 9 and 10. It's the season of the villains, really. You got Alpha and Beta, great villains who both ultimately die. But I really liked their whole thing. The whole Whisperers thing was really cool. It was really nice to see a villain that uses the zombies rather than just a villain that doesn't use zombies that much. It was a really interesting idea. Someone that can infiltrate the zombies and almost command them. They walk a certain way so that the zombies follow them, and then more zombies follow them, and then in a sense they are leading the horde, like leading an army. And it gave me serious like Lord of the Ring vibes, like the attacks, because it's just a horde of zombies. It's almost like a horde of orcs from Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, and that was really cool. And Negan's arc on top of that, a villain who, people still see him as a villain, but he is redeeming himself. And his arc is very cool. And of course, season 10 ultimately ends with a story dedicated to him and his backstory, which I think was a great way to end the season. Once again, one of the best episodes they've done. And it was really cool. It didn't feel like out of place, his backstory. It made a lot of sense. Like he had a wife, he was unfaithful, he was cheating on her, he was a violent man. and that made a lot of sense. Because if they just had him as some guy who was like really good, really nice, it wouldn't make sense. Like, we could never picture him as Negan. You know, the Negan we know that like kills people with a baseball bat, you know, wrapped in barbed wire. So it was cool to see that. His wife obviously has cancer. She's dying. And you see the softer side to him. The way he looks after and does his best. But it was a very tragic ending for him. The fact that she sort of killed herself because she thought she was going to die anyway. She didn't think that Negan would ever get back with the medication that she needed, like the chemo stuff. So she just died, and that sort of sent Negan over the edge. And it, even though it was only one episode, like, you know, like 45 minutes, did it get you to Negan and why he's the way he is? It made a lot of sense for me. It made a lot of sense as to why he ended up the way he did. You know, and I think it explained enough. I think it did enough to justify why Negan is the man he is today. Now, end of season 10, we're introduced to stormtroopers. I don't know, they damn sure look like stormtroopers. Probably better aim. I'm not saying much. Ugh. Yeah, stormtroopers. So, the Commonwealth. They're called the Commonwealth. So yeah, the Commonwealth are introduced at the end of season 10. Eugene has been on the old mobile blower. Well, he's been on a radio that he's built up, and he gets in contact with some woman. Can't remember her name. Sophia maybe, or something like that. No, it's not Sophia. That's Carol's daughter. He gets in contact with someone, and she tells him eventually where to meet her. So he goes with Ezekiel, Princess, and Yumiko. To this train yard where they're gonna meet this one lady or whatever, and then all these stormtroopers bop out and shove them in train cars. Now, of course, they're not actually stormtroopers; they're just guys that are dressed in white armor, which makes sense. You know, because then they're distinct to their other people, and you know the armor looks pretty thick and hefty, so it would be pretty hard for a walker to bite them. So it's smart, and yeah, these guys are called the Commonwealth. Now they are a new community. They look well organized. You know, they've got the strong armor. And they seem to have strong protocols and harsh treatment, of course, putting the people in the train cars, interviewing them, questioning them, treating them like shit, being quite violent as well when anyone tries to sort of fight back. And, you know, based on season 10 and based on the trailers for season 11, they don't look to be very friendly. And it's unlikely they're going to let the characters they've got lead, because they've essentially got them hostage at this stage. And there's contemplation, probably not true, but there's contemplation that the Commonwealth and the helicopter people could ultimately go to war with each other, because they seem like they're two very well organized communities. They seem very, very, you know, private but well set out. That's why they're such a big threat. And we're going to talk more about the helicopter people right now. Now, the Commonwealth, with the Stormtrooper folks, supposedly have like 50,000 people. That's what it is in the comics. They supposedly have like 50,000 people. Now, the helicopter people are known as the CRM. Now, CRM stands for... I did write it somewhere in this PowerPoint. Is it early on? I've written it. Oh, no. Where did I write CRM? It is one of these, I promise you. God damn it. I've written it. I know I have. It's like Republic something. I want to tell you guys. I want you to know what the CRM is, what it stands for. I've gone way too far back in my notes to see. I know I wrote it somewhere. I know I wrote the full thing out. I can't find what fucking slide it is. But isn't that one like semi-drunk? TWD. I'm just gonna Google it instead. You'll find out. CRM. Civic Republic Military, man. Not the easiest thing to remember. The Civic Republic Military. Okay, let me get back to the slide I was on. Okay. So yeah, the CRM. You might remember, if you watched the show, of course, Season 1, Rick sees a helicopter in Atlanta, like fly past the skyscraper. You might think maybe he's hallucinating, but he wasn't. That was a helicopter, and not for a while, but every now and then you get these little spots of like a helicopter, like someone hears it, or someone sees like a shadow of the blades, helicopter blades. There's always been that little tease, but you never really thought much of it. You just think, oh, maybe it's just like military or something. And that was that, really. But they are the CRM. Now, I don't think they're in the comics. I think they're like a new thing. Maybe they just put it in season 1 as like, yeah, let's have a helicopter go past. And they were like, you know what, maybe we can make a bigger deal out of that. And they have. But, it was never really delved into. There's only rare sights and teasers, like I said. Now, Jadis, who is the trash lady, she seems to know them personally. She's got the walkie-talkie, as we saw, and she provides them with people for their community. Like, she gives them people. Is it an A or a B? That's the thing. And also, to do with the letter A has always been a significant thing in The Walking Dead. Have you noticed that? When the cannibals get Rick, he's in, like, train car A. The Jadis thing with the helicopter people, an A or a B. When she locks Rick in one of her containers, it's A. Just a little note, a little sidetrack there. But, Jadis seems to provide people for the CRM. Now, I recently discovered there's a Walking Dead spin-off, and I'm not talking about Fear the Walking Dead. I haven't watched that, but obviously that's one of the spin-offs. But there's another one called The Walking Dead World Beyond. Apparently it's crap. It's not very good. Like, the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes was like 20%. Now, if the audience score is that low, it's a heaping pile of shit. But apparently that delves into the CRM. I had a little look into it. Apparently the CRM, just clarify, the helicopter people, okay? Remember that. I'm not going to call them helicopter people anymore because it's too long to say. The CRM, they apparently have 200,000 people in their colony. And Rick is probably one of them because World Beyond is set at the same time as The Walking Dead, so they probably have Rick. Now, the fact that a spin-off show is delving into the CRM begs the question of whether they'll make it into the main show. That's the problem. Is that World Beyond show a spin-off show for the sake of covering the CRM, and it's not going to have Rick in? Well, our show isn't going to have Rick in. So you wonder, is it going to make it into the main show? Have they got enough sort of time to tell the story to do with the CRM and bring back Rick, or if they're just trying to make it into a spin-off thing? But the thing is, no one fucking watches it, and no one's even heard of it. I don't think, because I sure as shit hadn't heard of it. I'd never heard of World Beyond until I googled it, like, recently, because I was doing some research. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to Rick, it would be a monumental waste and cock-up if Rick is not brought back for this final season and reunited with the group. And that goes for Michonne as well, who's gone looking for Rick, okay? Monumental cock-up. Because Michonne, like I said, was one of the best characters. She filled that gap along with her, along with Daryl and Negan. But she finds evidence that Rick is still alive. That was a really cool episode as well, I want to say. That episode where she, like, hallucinates. Goes through, like, an alternate storyline where she thinks, what if she joined the Saviors? That was really cool. I love the way they edited that. It must be quite hard to edit that where it looks like she's with Negan and the Saviors, like in old footage. Like when they're all on their knees and Negan's about to kill him and Michonne kills him instead. She never gets with Rick, never has a baby. And then, of course, she finds Rick's things on a boat. She finds his boots. And she finds, like, a carving he's done into, like, an old iPhone where he's carved Michonne and Judith. Like a picture of them. A little bit sidetracked there, but, she's gone as well. So that was like, I was like, oh, God, we've lost Michonne too. Like, Rick wasn't bad enough. Now we've lost Michonne. That's a struggle. I'll continue with that, though, of course, in just a moment, in terms of theorising what that means. But what I know so far about Season 11 is that it will delve into the Commonwealth, delve into the group's encounter with them, along with the Reapers, who, if you remember, if you've seen Season 10, they're a group that Maggie has been dealing with because she disappeared for like a season and a half. I think after Rick's death, she just sort of went and did her own thing for a little bit with her son. So the Reapers are like a beef with Maggie, so you're going to have the Reapers as a villain and the Commonwealth. So it's kind of cool that you've got two villains at once. I think that's dope. It's kind of what it needs because, villains, it's just like, oh yeah, like another group is going to try and attack our community. It's like, we haven't seen that like 7 times now. But, 2 at once, hopefully that means it's just a bit more drama. And of course, Negan looks to be a part of the team now, with Maggie, Daryl, Carol, and, everyone else who remains alive still from Season 10. And I'm looking forward to the dynamic, particularly. I can't even speak anymore, I'm sorry. Unbelievable, right? Anyway, yeah, the dynamic between Maggie and Negan should be interesting. Because, as you know, Negan killed Glenn. Maggie, when you kill a woman's husband, she probably wants to kill you back, So, I'm interested to see that dynamic. If Negan can almost redeem himself to the point where Maggie trusts him, if he can if she can understand why he did it in the first place, and of course just his interaction with everyone else. I think that's great, because then that adds an interesting element to our heroes. It's not just a case of, yeah, these guys are all friends. It's a case of, they're all friends except from this one guy who they used to hate and all wanted to kill. But now he's part of the group, and they're letting him just sort of run around with weapons and stuff and help him out. It's a great dynamic, and I look forward to seeing where that goes. Now, as I said a few moments ago, monumental cock-up. They don't bring Rick back. And for me, there's only one way this final season ends with a bang, and that is bringing Rick back, as well as Michonne. But Rick is the main man. We need him back. But Michonne too. They need to come back together. Now, he was the heart of this show for over 9 seasons. And it's crucial he comes back, because it's what every fan wants. You see a trailer for The Walking Dead. You see a post for The Walking Dead. There is inevitably several comments that say, bring Rick back. I like every one of them. I agree. Bring fucking Rick back. We need him back. But if you haven't heard, spin-offs, it's just a cursed word. I'm kind of getting fed up with spin-offs in every franchise at the moment. They're making spin-off movies for Rick. My friend Joe originally talked... Well, you know Joe. He's from the Fortnite vids and all the other gaming stuff. He told me that they're making a spin-off movie for Rick, and I was like, huh? I looked it up. Now, these movies, which is a supposed trilogy, movies, will apparently follow Rick right after he's picked up in the helicopter by the CRM, and then it's going to follow what happens to him. And Jadis will also be in the movies. So the actress who played Jadis will be back in the movies, and because obviously she's the one who takes him. Fuck her for that. She should have just left him on the riverbed so Daryl could have tracked him and found him and brought him home, and everything would be hunky-dory. But no. Bitch. But the problem with these spin-off movies, the fact that he's getting the movies, suggests to me that he probably won't come back to the show. It doesn't rule him out, but he probably won't come back. But I wish they weren't making these spin-off movies, because it would have just not been a proper ending for Rick. But because they're making spin-offs, it's like, it's fine. The people know that even if we don't bring Rick back now, they'll get him at a later date. But that's not the point. He was the heart of this show. He's on like every season cover until like season 10. He's the man on the posters. We need him back in the show. My hope for this, then, because they're making movies, is that Rick does return this season. He comes back. Huge, crazy moment. How it's going to happen, I don't know. Maybe the Commonwealth do go to war with CRM, and Rick just bops out, and it's like, oh my god, Rick's back, and it's just a crazy, magical moment. Everyone's happy, and Daryl cries, and I cry, and everyone's like, yes. And that'd just be awesome. He's been through his untold story for like however many years, like 5 or 6, maybe 7 now. We don't know what's necessarily happened to him with the CRM. That's going to remain a bit of a mystery, but he returns nonetheless. Little bits are revealed about what's been going on, where he's been at. I hope he doesn't come back as a villain. That'd be awful. But that'd be cool if he just comes back anyway. And then these movies that they're going to be making, supposedly, can act as like prequels. They can fill in that gap between season, when he disappeared at the beginning of season 9 until end of season 11, if he comes back, which I hope the fuck he does. But, it can act as that sort of thing where it's like the movies aren't bringing Rick back. They're just telling us what was happening to him when he wasn't around until he came back in season 11, and that would be just crazy good. I would enjoy the movies a lot more, because I'd be like, okay, Rick's back in the show. That'd satisfy the fuck out of me anyway. That make the show really worth watching, and it really give it a fulfilling ending. Our main star coming back, and then these movies are like, okay, because I think if the movies are the first thing to bring Rick back rather than the TV show, it's a case of like the movies are trying to be the star because they're trying to be like, oh yeah, Rick's coming back, so like. You haven't seen him since season 9, so come watch our movie and then you get to see him. It would just be a bit of a dick move, I think. I think that's kind of messed up from them. It's like they're just trying to steal the spotlight, steal the limelight in a sense there. But I just think they should really act as a bridge, bridging the gap. No pun intended there. And Rick should come back in season 11. It's what everyone wants. Surely the writers know that's what the fans want. They must see the comments like bring Rick back. People have been saying bring Rick back ever since he disappeared, so we want him back. But season 11 is a long season though, so there's room for it. It's 24 episodes. 8 are releasing this year, starting on Monday the 23rd of August. With 8 release. So yeah, 8 releasing this year, and then there's more in 2022. Now because it's 24, a season is usually 16, and they're doing 8 at a time for now. I thought they were maybe going to do 12, but they're doing 8. So I imagine we're going to get 3 sets of 8 revealed, and then likely another 2 sets in 2022. That's what I imagine. I'm bursting for a piss. I'm sorry guys, it's gone straight through me. BRB. I am back now. A review of the show. How is it as a whole? For me, overall, this show had 7 solid seasons. All right, season 1 to 7, very solid. The standout seasons 1 and 2, and up to the end of season 7, it remained a very good show, very worth watching. All right, season 8 fell off hard. And that's where it lost a lot of viewers, including me. I think because season 7 was a bit of a struggle anyway, and it wasn't as good as all the prior seasons. We kind of felt like the show was losing its way. Losting its way. What the fuck am I saying? The show was losing its way. And that's where it lost viewers, like me. But I should have stuck with it. I should have. The problem was the show's so long. There were like 16 episodes a season at least, and then you were waiting as well for, every week for a new episode, and then you have like mid-season gaps, you'd have to wait like a few months. So it's just a real struggle. It's hard to really give a damn. You're just sort of watching it, and you're not really caring. You're forgetting that it's even on when the next week comes around, and I lost faith with the show. But I really should have stuck it out because I'd made it that far anyway, and should have just seen if it improved. Season 9 did bring the show back to where it belongs. It still had a few issues, but then season 10 improved further. Season 10 was a better season. And it left the show in an intriguing spot. It really did. And this show, it certainly redeemed itself for me. It's back to a level of decent quality. I mean, the show will never produce the top quality overall. Like I said at the very start, it's never going to really be like pure masterpiece, creativity and filmmaking. It's not film, but like it's never going to be that top level of filmmaking, but it does produce exceptional characters that we love and that we become fond of and that we really support and we want to see outcomes for. And that's why we want to see Rick back so bad, because he's just such an awesome character and we all love Rick. We want him back, That's my biggest wish. I think it's everyone's biggest wish who's a fan of this show, is for Rick to return. So in other words, to summarize how this show went, great, then good, then bad, and then good again. There you have it. So, top, not bad, plummet, good again. That's pretty much it. Now to finish this off, I want to do a best of The Walking Dead. So, when it comes to villains, bottom of the list, the cannibals. They were pretty threatening, but they were short-lived. They were like a few episodes long, and they, I rate the fact that, they sort of fooled everyone by saying, come to Terminus, it's safe, putting like signs everywhere. But, they weren't that great, and like I said, they were short-lived, so they weren't that impactful. Then the governor, okay, it's kind of bad that he sits this low on the list, but the governor was actually a very good villain. I really like, the actor who played him. I don't know his name, but he did a fantastic job. And he ended up becoming more ruthless the longer he was a villain, because he kind of wasn't to start with, but he just became more and more cruel, doing more and more fucked up things. And he was a really good villain for that. Then the Saviors, for me. The Saviors were a good villain, a good sort of antagonist for our group, mainly because of their leaders, such as Negan and Trevor. It's not his name, but obviously the voice actor for Trevor in GTA 5 plays one of his like right hand dudes, and he looks exactly the same. He was a really good villain. And then obviously you get conflicts within the Saviors, between the leaders even. And on top of that, it's just cool to see how well organized they are. How sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like how dedicated the people who work for the Saviors are. The fact that they'll like say, I am Negan, they'll die for Negan, but eventually doubt settles in, of course, and it doesn't end up lasting. And, our group ultimately win in the end, because the Saviors almost give too much of a chance to the people that they let in. Like they think that they can treat people like shit and burn their face up like with Dwight, or kill Eugene's friends and then just put them within their group and think that fear will motivate them and that they'll stay loyal forever. But ultimately you see that the Saviors' downfall is kind of down to Eugene and Dwight. That's kind of what ends up breaking them apart. So that's kind of where they had a bit of, once again, what's the word I'm looking for? A bit of ignorance. That's the one. To the whole thing about who they can trust. Next up, Shane. I think he counts as a villain, and I think he was a good one because he was a villain that hit close to home for Rick. Like I've said with like superhero movies and stuff, the villains for me that hit the most are the ones that are originally friends and then they turn bad, or when it's just like one person rather than like a whole army. I think that's when they're a more effective villain, and for me that was Shane. I wanted Shane to be good so much. I wanted him to like agree with Rick. I wanted them to be like best friends and like, just carry on kicking ass and fighting zombies for the rest of their days. But ultimately it couldn't go that way. They were just two different people. And obviously the whole thing of Shane actually being the father to Judith, who is Rick's, daughter. I think Shane was a great villain. And I thought it was a shame when we lost him. I think that's the thing with a villain. Like, even if you want your hero to get them and to overcome them, you actually don't want them to die. And that's kind of the thing with Shane and Negan. You kind of wanted them to live on because they were just such interesting characters, and that's the thing. I don't really miss the governor. I don't really miss, I don't miss the cannibals. But I do miss Shane. And I'm glad that Negan's still around, because I would miss Negan if he was gone. But ultimately, the top villain for me is the Whisperers. Just because of the fact that they're so dedicated, and they're willing to do disgusting shit like cutting off walker masks and wearing them in order to like attack people and stuff. I think it's vile, it's disgusting, but they were a great villain, and it's really what season 9 and 10 needed to just bring the show back. Really interesting plotline, and it really seemed unlikely. Like, how the hell are our heroes going to overcome these guys when they've got like zombie hordes almost at their command? So yeah, Whisperers for me, but that's where I kind of rank these villains. But they're all pretty tight. It's not like one's really far off and one's really high up, like, because there's not a whole lot of antagonists in the show, but they're all pretty tight. It's just some are slightly better. But saddest deaths, I've listed a few. Obviously, a lot of people die in the show, but I think you got like Jesus, Noah, Tyrese. I think they were all sad deaths. I really liked those three characters, and it's a shame they had to die. It wasn't like tear-worthy sad, but it was a shame because they were good characters. It's a shame they died. I'm sorry, Tara. You just nah. If you didn't become so cringe, maybe I would care, but not that bothered, in all honesty. Abraham, I think, that was a sad one. He was a very standout character. He was different from the rest of the group. I love that his final words were "suck my nuts." Who the hell else would say that? That takes some balls, man. Abraham, great character. Herschel, once again, sad death. He didn't deserve to go like that way because he had real wisdom and he impacted Rick a lot. I think he was a real pivotal part of Rick sort of finding the road to redemption, sort of finding himself after the death of Laurie. So that was a miss. Shane, of course, a villain, but also I like Shane. I just really like Shane. I know a lot of people like Shane. Yeah, Shane was alright. I'm a big fan of Shane. I thought he was a fucking great character, and I think it's a shame he couldn't have. It's a shame Shane couldn't have lived a bit longer. But there you have it. Beth, very sad death. That was one where Daryl cried. He carries her out in his arms because obviously they'd had some moments together in that season, like their night in the cabin, drinking moonshine. It was a shame that Beth had to go. And she's one I miss. She was a really good character, and that sucked. And then you had Carl. Like I said, his episode did get to me. I found his death sad. That was a sad goodbye, but it was a worthy goodbye. It's nice that he got a whole episode because he warrants it. He deserves it because he's been in the show from the start. Probably the top one though is Glenn. It wasn't a death that made me cry or anything, but that was just brutal. It was a horrible way for anyone to go in that show. And seeing what it did to Maggie, that season 7, episode 1, was some of the most tense television you'll ever watch. Seeing that happen, waiting to see who dies, that scene must go on for like 20 minutes. And then obviously, Negan taking Rick out for a drive and like making him get the hatchet out in the fog with the Horde. It's crazy. So yeah, that was sad. And obviously, if Rick had died, I think that would have been the saddest death. But he didn't. But I still found that episode sad. I found it emotional. And like I said, basically whenever Daryl cries, I'ma do it too. That shit's sad. And finally, the best episodes of the show. Obviously, I don't have the episode names, but here we go. The first ever episode, like I said at the start, fantastic episode. I loved it. Great intro to the show, and it made me realize when I was rewatching the show again, like, okay, this is why I'm watching it. There is quality. If it can hit this quality, it's got to be worth watching. In season 2, the episode where Carol's daughter comes out of the farm, Sophia, she comes out of the barn. That was crazy. I remember the first time I watched that, my jaw just dropped. I was like, holy shit. That whole season, as I said, was great. Oh, excuse me. A really good episode that I think kind of got, I don't know, it doesn't maybe get that much thought about, was Carol and Tyrese's episode where they've got the 2 daughters that aren't theirs, of course, because the daughter's dad has died, but they're like out in the wilderness and stuff. They're like living just like in a nice house, but the cinematography in that episode was really good. The music was really good. It just stuck with them the whole time. And obviously one of the daughters is very unstable. She thinks the zombies are like friends, and she ends up killing her sister because she thinks she's going to come back as a zombie and it's going to be fine. And then, Carol and Tyrese have to deal with the other daughter and they have to bury them both. And it's really fucked up, that episode. It's very dark, but I found it very impactful, and it really added a lot of depth to those two, Carol and Tyrese. It really added something to them. A bit later on in the season, I believe it was season 8. You got Rick and Michonne's Day Out. It's not the name of the episode, but it's just one where they go out, they go looking for stuff, and they just have a nice time. Like, they go out scavenging for supplies, and they end up like at an amusement park, and it just adds real character bonding for them. Real character bonding, and you see they're like such a nice couple. You never really see it coming, and when it does happen, you think, is this just kind of random? Because there's a lot of random couples in that show, like Gabriel and freaking Rosita. Like, what? I'm not even going to delve into that, but Michonne. No, I'm not saying that's cringe. Rick and Michonne, great couple, and I really like that episode in particular. They go hunting the deer and just all this stuff. That was a great episode. Obviously the season 7 intro, as I mentioned, Kind of a great episode for the wrong reasons because it's just messed up. But it was very, very tense. Probably the most tense episode they've done, but highly effective. Rick's goodbye, as I said, that's he goes and you get the flashbacks and the cameos. That was really effective. And then Michonne on the island. So this is after Rick's gone. She returns this guy to his island because she's just trying to help him out, and she thinks he's got supplies on the island. But you find out he's kind of messed up because his family's died, and he sort of gives her drugs, so she hallucinates. And as I mentioned before, she has this hallucination where she joined the Saviors, and that was really well edited and really cool to see. And then ultimately she finds Rick's things in that episode, and that's her last episode. She finds Rick's boots and a little drawing. He's done a carving, and she goes looking for him. And that episode really had me drawn, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. This is dope. And then that was where it ended. So yeah, that's the end of my PowerPoint. That's I was reading off PowerPoint there. Don't worry, I didn't write everything I just said out word for word, of course, because that'd be ridiculous. But The Walking Dead, it's an interesting show. It's had its ups, it's had its major downs, but it's back up again. I've given it a chance, and I really wanted to talk about it. I mean, whether this is going to be of interest to you guys, whether you even made it this far into the videos, obviously it's going to be a long one because it's a podcast, but the Lonely Podcast, I'm going to be doing more. I'd like to do a podcast a week, maybe just talk about what's going on in the world, movies, TV, and just other stuff, whatever's good to talk about. And maybe eventually it won't be so lonely. Maybe I'll have someone on in this bedroom of mine with one microphone and one camera. Yeah, we'll branch out when I've when I get one of my actors right on Sky Bet, I'll invest. But for now, thank you for watching, if you did. The Walking Dead, we'll see. I will be back, of course, to talk about Walking Dead Season 11. That might just be a season review. Maybe a podcast. Maybe we'll talk about it with a friend. Obviously, Joe watches it. He's a big fan. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching. This was episode 1 of the Lonely Podcast. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.